Hello everyone, and welcome to Wicked Encounters, where we explore just what goes bump in the night. I'm your host Allie, and it's every horror fan's favorite time of year, October. In celebration of the spookiest month, I've compiled a list of movies that I think are worth sharing with you guys, and I'm calling it the 31 Days of Wicked Horror. We're on the 28th day of October now, but in case it's your first time checking in, I'll tell you how I've selected these movies that I believe are worthy enough for you to watch. First off, none of the movies are going to be older than 20 years, so we can add some newer videos to our must-watch lists instead of continuing to repeat the same ones from 50 years ago. Hello, Omen! Secondly, I'll be providing the synopsis and plot of the movies for those who may not like surprises or just want to listen to know what the movies are about. There will be a slide letting you know when we're coming up on it, and I'll let you know where it's safe to click on to avoid spoilers. Also, while many of the movies are streamable, I'm not going to really give you the info on where you can watch them, because it varies based on where you live, and streaming services love removing movies all the time, even if they're good. Finally, I'm going to give you some reasons as to why the movie stands out and why I think you'll like it. So, 28th on our list is Oculus. Oculus is a 2013 psychological horror film co-written, edited, and directed by Mike Flanagan, with production by Intrepid Pictures, Blumhouse Productions, MICA Entertainment, and WWE Studios. Ooh, Rhea Ripley, let's go! John Cena. The movie intertwines past and present to tell the story of a cursed mirror and the devastating impact it has on a family. It follows siblings Kaylee and Tim Russell as they confront a supernatural entity that has haunted them since childhood. I'm going to go more in depth and go over the plot of the movie now, so if you'd like to skip, you'll know where to skip to in 3, 2, 1. The story begins in the past, focusing on the Russell family. Alan and Marie Russell move into a new home with their children, 12-year-old Kaylee and 10-year-old Tim. Among their new possessions is an antique mirror known as the Lasser glass, which Alan places in his office. Soon after the mirror's arrival, strange occurrences begin to plague the family. Alan becomes increasingly distant, spending most of his time in his office, where he seems to be influenced by the mirror. He becomes obsessed with the mirror, and begins seeing an apparition of a woman named Marisol Chavez, who seduces him and drives a wedge between him and his wife. Marie also begins to lose her grip on reality, becoming paranoid and unstable. She believes Alan is having an affair, and begins to see disturbing visions of her own reflection behaving independently. She becomes convinced that something is wrong with her children, growing increasingly abusive and erratic. As the supernatural influence of the mirror grows, the family falls apart. Alan eventually loses all touch with reality, driven to madness by the mirror's power. The situation escalates when Marie, completely unhinged, tries to kill her children. Alan intervenes, but ends up restraining her in their bedroom. The climax of the past storyline occurs when Kaylee and Tim realize the mirror is the source of their parents' madness and try to destroy it. But the mirror manipulates their perceptions, making it impossible for them to distinguish reality from illusion. Alan, now fully controlled by the mirror, kills Marie. In a final confrontation, Alan points a gun at his children, but in a brief moment of clarity, he turns the gun on himself, urging them to run. Before he dies, he tells Tim to protect his sister. As the police arrive, they find Tim holding the gun, leading to his arrest for the murder of his father. Despite Kaylee's attempt to explain the truth about the mirror, Tim is taken away to a psychiatric institution, while Kaylee is left in foster care. 11 years later, Tim is released from the psychiatric institution, having been rehabilitated, and convinced that the events of his childhood were the result of a psychological breakdown, rather than anything supernatural. Kaylee, however, has spent the intervening years researching the mirror's dark history, determined to prove that it was responsible for their family's tragedy. Kaylee has tracked down the laser glass, now in the possession of an auction house, and convinces Tim to help her destroy it. She brings the mirror to their childhood home, which is now abandoned, and sets up an elaborate system of cameras, alarms, and fail-safes to document its powers and ultimately destroy it. Kaylee explains that the mirror has been linked to numerous deaths and tragedies over the centuries, feeding on the life force of its victims. As they begin their experiment, the mirror quickly begins to manipulate their perceptions, blurring the lines between past and present. Kaylee and Tim experience hallucinations that force them to relive the trauma of their childhood, making it increasingly difficult to discern what is real. The mirror systematically disables their fail-safes and distorts their sense of time and reality, trapping them in a nightmarish loop. Throughout the night, the siblings are tormented by visions of their parents, the ghostly figure of Marisol, and their younger selves. The mirror plays on their fears, regrets, and unresolved guilt, drawing them deeper into its influence. Despite their efforts to resist, they are unable to escape the mirror's control. In a tragic and ironic twist, as the mirror's hold on them intensifies, Kaylee becomes convinced that she can destroy the mirror by using the anchor mechanism she sets up earlier, a heavy object designed to smash the mirror when triggered. However, the mirror manipulates her perception, causing her to see the mirror as intact, and her mother standing before it. When the anchor is released, it doesn't hit the mirror, but instead kills Kaylee, who is unknowingly standing in its path. As Tim snaps out of the mirror's influence, he realizes too late what has happened. The police arrive and, just like 11 years ago, find Tim at the scene of a horrific crime. With Kaylee dead and the mirror unscathed, Tim is arrested again, this time for his sister's murder. As he is taken away, he sees the ghosts of his parents in the window of the house, their souls still trapped by the mirror. The film ends with the chilling implication that the mirror will continue its cycle of destruction, as it has for centuries, claiming more victims and leaving tragedy in its wake. And with that, the film ends. Hello! Nice of you to stick around. To those who stayed, I hope you enjoyed what you heard enough to give it a watch. And for those who skipped, I think you'll really like this one. It's a nice little spooky with a cursed item. I don't know, it just has a real nice charm to it. But I bet you're wondering why it made it onto the list. What makes Oculus stand out? Well, for one, despite how I read the synopsis, it actually doesn't have a linear storytelling. Oculus stands out for its non-linear narrative, seamlessly intertwining the past and present. This structure creates a complex and disorienting experience for the audience, mirroring the characters' confusion as they struggle to differentiate between reality and illusion. The film's clever editing and pacing keeps viewers on edge, gradually revealing the full horror of the mirror's influence. Psychological horror. The horror in Oculus is primarily psychological, focusing on the mental torment and manipulation inflicted by the mirror. The film plays with themes of memory, perception, and guilt, making the characters struggle against the supernatural entity deeply personal and emotionally charged. The mirror's ability to distort reality is more terrifying than any physical threat, as it exploits the characters' deepest fears and their traumas. Ambiguity and unreliable narration. One of the film's strengths is its ambiguity. The audience, like the characters, cannot be certain of what is real and what is an illusion created by the mirror. This unreliable narration adds to the tension and creates a sense of unease that persists throughout the film. The lack of clear boundaries between reality and hallucination keeps viewers guessing and contributes to the film's unsettling atmosphere. Innovative use of a haunted object. While haunted houses and cursed objects are rather common in horror, Oculus reinvents the trope by focusing on an inanimate object, the mirror, that serves as the antagonist. The laser glass is not just a conduit for supernatural events, but an active, malevolent force with a will of its own. The mirror's history of causing death and madness adds depth to its menace, making it a formidable and terrifying presence. Minimalist approach to horror. Oculus relies more on atmosphere, tension, and psychological horror than on gore or jump scares. The film's minimalist approach allows the horror to build slowly, drawing the audience into the character's mental unraveling. This restrained style is effective in creating a lingering sense of dread, making the moments of terror more impactful. Exploration of trauma and memory. The film delves into how trauma and memory can be manipulated, both by supernatural forces and by the mind itself. The mirror's ability to distort the characters' memories forces them to confront their past in ways that are painful and disorienting. This exploration of how trauma can alter perception adds an emotional depth to the horror, making it resonate beyond the typical scares. Complex themes. Oculus touches on themes of guilt, repression, and the cycle of trauma. The characters' inability to escape their past and the mirror's relentless influence suggests that some traumas are inescapable, no matter how hard one tries to confront or suppress them. This thematic complexity elevates the film above standard horror fare, making it a thought-provoking and haunting experience. Oculus stands out in the horror genre for its innovative narrative structure, psychological depth, and the unique concept of a haunted object that preys on its victims' minds. Its blend of psychological horror and supernatural elements creates a film that is intellectually engaging as it is terrifying. And that's all I have on Oculus. I only have 3 more movies. What do you think they could be? How do you feel about Oculus being on the list? Would it make it onto yours? What do you think of the Lasser glass? And how would you try to break it? Or would you even bother? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to discuss horror more in depth with you all, so feel free to join the Wicked Encounters Discord group. If you like what I do and want to support me, maybe consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the little bell icon so you know when I post. If you want to support me in other ways, maybe check out my Patreon. I'd like to give a great big thank you to my patrons, Nakala and Beefalump. You guys are just simply the best. Well, that's all I've got time for today. So remember, I'm Allie, this is Wicked Encounters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!